From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, March Madness is upon us.
It is.
Boy, we can go down a lot of different avenues. Certainly basketball is in play, hockey, soccer, baseball, and of course football is always out there when it comes to the NFL. So I'm going to let you start. I know you're eager to talk about what's going on down in Florida, the Grapefruit League, the Minnesota Twins, and it wasn't good news earlier this week, was it?
No. When you learn that Anthony DeSclafani, who they got in the Jorge Polanco trade, now he wasn't the major piece in it, but he was a piece, is going to be out for the season. So he's a non-factor. And then Johan Duran is going to be out for a while. Your closer, your 105-mile-an-hour blistering pitch closer is out. This is not what the Twins need because we knew going in, the pitching staff is probably the most vulnerable part of this team right now. I think if, of course, this is going way out on a limb, if Byron Buxton is healthy, if Royce Lewis is healthy, if Carlos Correa is healthy, now that's 1, 2, 3. You need those three guys healthy. But if those three guys are in the lineup, a high percentage of the time, the Twins are going to have a very potent lineup. But you can't win without pitching. And the absence, obviously, of Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda, those guys gone. So you bring in DeSclafani figuring he can fill in one. Well, now you're going to go to Louis Varland. And, Louis may do the job. We don't know. But I would say right now they're skating on thin ice, so to speak.
Holes in the rotation. And, you singled out the guys that left, Kenta Maeda to Detroit, Sonny Gray to St. Louis. Louis Varland's going to have to step up. And then on the back end, Johan Duran. Ooh. I mean, a lights-out closer, and certainly some of the great intro music that any closer in Major League Baseball has. I mean, the way the Twins do it, it's like a WWE production.
That's fun.
Yeah,
That's
I
fun.
love it. They turn out the lights, get your cell phone lit up, and play that wild music that he has to get him revved up. But that's a big loss. And then you're also saying that your middle guys, your bridge guys, are going to have to be almost flawless. So the Twins go in like the Riddler with a lot of question marks on the uniform, right? From the Batman days of yesteryear.
Yes.
They're still in a division that's very winnable.
Frank Gershon, by the way.
Yeah, that's very good. The Riddler. But, okay. I'll ask you a question. I already know the answer to it. It's very rhetorical.
Right. Yes.
So some organizations, if they lost their closer and lost a starter.
Can I stop you right now? They're not going to do it.
So I won't even bring up Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery, who are on the market.
Well, they were when the injuries were announced. And, And
the price of poker just went up for those guys.
Yes. It did for the Twins.
No.
Well, I think one of them, Montgomery is represented, unfortunately, by Scott Boras. So you can forget about that.
So they won't make an effort.
No
we know
way.
that.
No way.
It's unfortunate, though, because those are very good pitchers.
Sorry to stop you in your tracks.
No, I knew it was. Why even bring it up?
Well, bring it up because if you really believe that you are a contending team, you should look at somebody, at least Jordan Montgomery. I think Blake Snell, as much as I'd like to have Blake Snell, I would say I wouldn't want to spend $35 or $40 million on that guy.
On the flip side, we're getting late into spring. Opening days on the horizon. These guys eventually want to sign with somebody, and it might be a Carlos Correa type situation that we saw a couple of years ago where Correa eventually says, all right, I'll go to Minnesota and I'll have a bunch of opt-outs written into my deal. So it looked like it might be one and done, right? A truck stop, a springboard. He eventually re-signs here after the fiasco with the Giants and the Mets last offseason. Well, what about, hey, we'll bring in for a year. Here's a $25 million check, Jordan or Blake. That's pretty much what it would take. Come pitch on a team that should be in contention at the very least.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're favored to win the division.
I know they are.
I mean, they are the third highest favorite among all division champions. So of the 6 divisions in baseball, they have the third best odds of winning their division, according to the odds makers. But The odds makers didn't know about DeSclafani, and they didn't know about Johan Duran.
And the odds are like the stock market. They're fluid. They fluctuate. So they've probably changed as we have done this segment.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, Caleb Theobar has not thrown much here in the spring as well. So there's another guy in that bullpen that they're going to need if they're going to be successful this year. Okay. Enough baseball. Quickly, and I say quickly because I know you could go on forever with this. Your overall impressions after the onslaught of changes that the Vikings went through, immediately after the free agent signing period was open.
Yeah, free agency frenzy. Wow, it eclipses March Madness in a lot of ways. Well, I love the signing of Aaron Jones. I think he's a stud. He's a big reason why Green Bay made a deep run in the playoffs.
Yep.
They had to get Jonathan Grenard from Houston because they knew Daniil was going to go to Houston as it worked out. I don't know how you replace Hunter, though. I mean, he had an outstanding season. Some of the other moves, Blake Cashman has been in and out of the lineup. He's going to be pumped up to come back to Minnesota. We'll see what he gives him. They've got this guy out of Miami that played for Brian Flores.
Right.
So, but the Sam Darnold thing is intriguing. It's a one-year deal, but did they even take a look at Russell Wilson? Did they kick the tires? Because I think Pittsburgh won the offseason Super Bowl. They got that linebacker Queen from Baltimore. They get Justin Fields, and they only give him a 6th-round pick.
Boy.
And if he plays 51% of the time, it's a 4th-round pick. That's a bargain for Pittsburgh. And then you get Russell Wilson for $1.2 million. Denver's got to fork out the rest of the money, dead cap money. To me, that is a risk I would definitely have taken. And Russell Wilson has a better pedigree than Sam Darnold. I mean, he's been in 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1. Now he's older, but I still think Wilson's got gas in the tank.
I'm convinced of 2 things. One, that Russell Wilson would have been a better mentor for whoever it is they're going to draft than Sam Darnold will be. And 2, that Kevin O'Connell is not a guy who wants a quarterback that's mobile. He wants somebody to stand in that pocket. And we've seen it time and time again. And I think that they decided we'll rather have a statue in Sam Darnold and not that Russell Wilson, he's not Patrick Mahomes, mind you. He's older now, but he still does like to move. And I just think that they just decided to, spend their money elsewhere. But it would cost them a lot less. I'm surprised too. I agree.
And it is okay if you have that blueprint or that template you want in a quarterback. But if you're rigid, it can cost you. You have to be flexible, especially in today's NFL, where mobility is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're going to talk some hoops because, as you mentioned, it is March Madness.
Yeah, coffee time coming up. Richard Coffey going to join us here on 10K Takes. Your Russell Wilson ticket.
No.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so we're always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Get away to Lakeville, Minnesota, where your family will have tons of outdoor fun. Come for the nature and stay for the thrills. Bring the bikes, swimsuits, fishing poles, and walking shoes as Lakeville boasts trails, lakes, and beaches. Plan your itinerary at visitlakeville.org today.
10,000 Takes, Wally and Eric, and we are going to talk some hoops now. And before we get into talking about the NCAA tournament and brackets and everything, let's bring in Richard Coffey, the former Gopher and Timberwolf, and talk about the Gophers, who we know missed the tournament this year. They're playing in the NIT. But give me your overhead view on what you saw this year as far as progress, because clearly they made some steps this year, Richard.
Yeah, I was really impressed, especially in the environment of NCAA basketball. now, where players can transfer in or out. Seems like every year, the landscape is definitely different. So to be able to build a team good enough to win some Big Ten games and to make it to a postseason tournament, like that's impressive. Now, what I'm concerned about is he going to be able to keep his team together?
Yeah.
Minnesota is not a big NIL university.
No.
And that makes a difference in the landscape today.
Yeah.
No question. And I want to get your thoughts, Richard, on the barn. You were recruited by Clem Haskins a few decades ago. Obviously decided Minnesota was the place for you. And then your son Amir was recruited as well. Both of you played at the barn. We keep hearing, well, there's no wow factor. That's from the AD, Mark Coyle. It's not good enough for young kids. Now, I disagree, but what are your takeaways? And what was Amir's thoughts about the barn?
I will say this. When it's empty, it's not good at all. When kids are visiting and it's empty and you're walking through, it's really tough. The history is amazing. Unfortunately, kids don't care about your history these days. and it is an old facility. I think if they would have to do a major reconstruction on the inside. I think there's so many seats in there without backs to them. Like, I love the barn. I do. I love the raised court. But I think if you're going to be super competitive, you have to prepare for the market. In the market that's out there, these young kids coming out, everybody want to play on TV, everybody want to be in a nice stadium, and they don't care about anything else. Now, the truth is, whether you build an amazing stadium or not, is the University of Minnesota going to attract players that can possibly win the Big Ten, or should you just be satisfied with the middle of the pack if you're a University of Minnesota fan? I mean, it's tough to recruit in the Big Ten, and when you're not one of the top tier teams, players that are thinking about going to the Big Ten, sometimes they choose elsewhere. And I don't think a new facility is going to make that big of a difference in those decisions.
Well, I definitely don't think so. I think that they want to win. They want to be in the NCAA tournament, and as you already pointed out, they want that NIL money, which, of course, the major powers in college basketball have. All right, how far away? Let's say that they get this team back, the majority of them. And I'd say Dawson Garcia's got to be one of them. But let's say they get Garcia back and most of what they have back next year. How far away do you think they are from contending for, a Big Ten title and or an NCAA bid? They should be an NCAA team if they get this team back, right?
If they get the team back, they should be an NCAA team, yes. And I think that's I don't even want to talk about winning a Big Ten title. That's so hard to do, but I think fans will be really satisfied if you can get a team to go to the tournament, 4 out of 5 years, and win, 1 or 2 games in the tournament, make it to the Sweet 16, 2 or 3 years out of 6 years, or Final 8. Honestly, at the University of Minnesota, that's success.
Richard, and you brought up NIL a few minutes ago. It really is a game changer. Minnesota's got to get on board, whether it's basketball, football, hockey, whatever. Now, I've been saying you've got all these Fortune 500 companies up here, from Cargill to General Mills to 3M, and then you have a lot of wealth around Lake Minnetonka and North Oaks. You've got to figure a way to get their money. Am I naive, or tell me, Richard? Tell me about this.
If you look at the Big Ten, if you look at the traditional Big Ten teams before they start adding teams, right? Back when I played, if you look at Minneapolis, it was the largest metropolitan area in the entire Big Ten. You would think in today's environment, with that, success would come from having individual companies and organizations be participating in the new landscape of the NIL. And unfortunately, when you don't, you're not going to get the good players. And when players come here, if they have some success, they're going to go somewhere else. And can you blame them? Like, honestly, some of these players, less than 1% of all basketball players play in the NBA.
Yep.
So these players, these 4 years, it can be kind of life-changing if you go to the right school and get, you making $400,000 a year for 4 years. You can come out of college and buy and pay for a house, and that changes your life. Right? Can you imagine not having a house payment from the very beginning because you pay for a house and then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of your life? How much money could you save to invest then in your retirement? So,
and you never play a lick in the NBA, right?
Right. Like, these are big decisions that these players are making these days from a financial perspective, and you have to get on board. And you're right. With as many Fortune 500 companies that are here, with as many organizations that are here in the Fortune 1000 companies, the wealth that's here in Minnesota, you would think that we would be better than we are when it comes to NIL deals. Because I'm telling you, these kids have to make a different decision than they made 4 years ago, even 5 years ago before the NIL start. It's here and it's here to stay. Now, there might be some guidelines put in place, eventually, but it's here and it's here to stay. So you have to get on board, or I don't care what coach you hire, you should get used to being mediocre if you're not on board with it.
All right, we've got about 1 minute left. Give me your take on the Timberwolves as they head down the stretch here, minus Karl Anthony Towns.
They need him. They are a different looking team without him. The one thing that the Timberwolves were all year that had other teams struggling with them were their size. You got Towns shooting threes. You got Anthony. I mean, they were big, right? I mean, and when you had, I mean, they would have 2 7-footers on the court, a 6'10" guy, and then Anthony. Like, that's a tough lineup. Without Towns, they don't have that. So they're easier to figure out defensively. And Anthony Edwards can't be Superman every single night, especially in a playoff. Yeah. Like, it's tough to have the strength and the ability to, in a 7-game series, to play it, to score 35, 40 points every night. That's very difficult to do just with wear and tear on your body.
Richard, good stuff. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk down the road.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Richard. He is Richard Coffey, the former Gopher, former Minnesota Timberwolf, here on 10,000 Takes. Stay with us. We're back with more after this time.
Let your adventure begin in Lakeville, Minnesota. We have over 90 places to grab a bite to eat, and we're close to the Mall of America, Valley Fair, and the Minnesota Zoo, plus hotel packages and great rates. Visit Lakeville. We're serious about fun all year round.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so we're always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 Takes rolling along, and it was on this very show 2 weeks ago that the great Lou Nanne said to us there is no chance that the Minnesota Wild will make the postseason. Now, as of the time we tape this show, he's still right. They're on the outside looking in. However, they have made up significant ground over the last couple of weeks. And heck, had they beaten St. Louis this past weekend instead of just taking 1 point, they would have been within 2 points of the last playoff spot. That said, it's in flux. They still have a shot if they keep winning, but they have put the pedal to the metal here over the last couple of weeks, and they know it too. I saw some quotes from a couple of the guys, and they know it. It seems like every game is a must-win now, and it is.
No, and their job is to go out and win hockey games. Right. I mean, all of these players, it's an audition every night, because even if you don't make the playoffs, you've got to show John Hines and Bill Guerin that you're giving max effort every night, that you still think that this team can do good things. And the problem is you're looking at a 4-team scrum now. Nashville, right. Vegas, the defending Cup champions, they've had a drop off.
Minnesota,
but Vegas knows, hey, we just got to get in, right? And then Minnesota and St. Louis. So the Blues do come to St. Paul on Saturday. That's a 1 p.m. face-off because you have the NCHC frozen face-off Friday night and Saturday night. So they'll be changing that ice out quickly, or maybe they won't. I don't know how that's going to go, but that's almost got to get to in regulation there. I know there's some games before then. They go to Anaheim this week and all that, and the Ducks aren't very good. But I suspect they'll make a run. I still think they fall short.
Yeah. It is not going to be easy. They do not have a no chance situation, but I think that you're right. I think that they are teetering here on extinction for 2024. It may not be the worst thing. Maybe they get a little higher draft pick. Maybe they get it right. I don't know. Your Loons are off to a pretty good start, huh? Soccer in the elements?
I checked the table, yes, which in soccer is the standings. There's only 3 teams with 10 points early on.
Okay.
Minnesota in the West, and then Inter Miami, that's Lionel Messi's club. And your Columbus Crew, I don't know why you don't claim the Crew. They're Ohio. They're the MLS Cup champs. Most of your teams don't win. This is your chance. Get on the Crew's bandwagon, would you?
I got news for you, man. I don't care about the Columbus Crew.
All right, well, whatever. They're off to a good start. Eric Ramsey, I think he's 32. He came from Man U, that's Manchester United, to Min U, that's Minnesota United. That's a big jump. The EPAL, he was an assistant coach. Now he's here in the MLS, but he was on the sidelines for the first time last week. They shut out LAFC 2-0 at Allianz. So he's got him off to a good start. A lot of soccer left, so but it's encouraging if you are a Minnesota United fan.
Wow, and that is a long season.
Oh boy, yeah.
That is the longest of the regular seasons, I think, because didn't they start late February, the first week of March? I mean, and that thing goes until October, regular season.
And LAFC, this is why I really believe the Minnesota Vikings should have always stayed outside. They had to play in a blizzard in Salt Lake about 3 weeks ago. Their coach was teed off.
I heard that.
And then they play Saturday night, and it was breezy, probably wind chills in the 20s against Minnesota United. LAFC probably not too happy about the schedule.
Yeah, well, just be happy that they're not a team from, say, Central America that comes here to play Team USA.
That was not fair.
No, it wasn't. All right, more to come. Takes of the day up next. You are watching 10,000 Takes, your MLS ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Finding the ideal place to stay is important for business travelers. Lakeville, Minnesota is conveniently located off I-35, just south of the Twin Cities, with a variety of hotel choices. Lakeville offers convenient amenities such as shopping, walking trails, golf, and more. Our unique meeting spaces, historic downtown, live music, and over 60 dining options are sure to impress. Book your next stay in Lakeville and experience convenience, comfort, and quality. Find your perfect hotel at visitlakeville.org.
10K Takes on television. We're going to wrap up yet another episode, but before we do, we're going to find out what this man's mood is. Is he an angry American, a grumpy guardian, or dare I say it, maybe a happy camper? It happens once every millennium.
Wow. Well, a little more often than that, but certainly not now. So I saw a recent interview with University of Minnesota Athletic Director Mark Coyle. And he was asked a number of questions on a number of topics. But the most intriguing answer that I heard from him was with regard to the venerable Williams Arena, the barn where the Gopher men's and women's basketball teams play. And he suggested that while the barn has history and while there's a wow factor when it comes to Athletes Village, and while there's a wow factor for those 18-year-olds they're trying to recruit for the locker rooms and such underneath Williams Arena, there isn't much of that going on in the arena itself. Well, I want to know exactly what that wow is that they're going to put into the arena. Now, he claims that he's blaming the media for saying they're going to tear it down, and until you say you're not, I think it's still on the table, right? Look, the only thing that kids care about, those 18-year-olds, I'll tell you what they want. They want to get into the NCAA tournament, which you're not. They want to win, which you haven't been doing much of lately. And they want to get paid, which is a problem right now that you have to deal with NIL. So building a new barn or adding some wow on the inside of the barn, I don't know what you're going to do. The place holds, 14,000 people? So you can't add a bunch more seats because they're empty anyway. So why would you do that? You've got a big scoreboard. You got a raised floor that's kind of cool. It's different. What are we talking about here on the wow factor scale? I know what they're talking about. They want to add suites for all the fat cats out there. That's what they're talking about, and they're kind of disguising it by saying it's wow factor. That's a bunch of crapola. Keep the barn the way it is. If you want to widen the hallways or something like that for people, great. If you want to add some suites, great, but don't say it's a wow factor. Kids don't care.
All right, let's see where that mood meter lands.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he's pegging the red.
Yeah.
Not surprised. Well, you're right. They don't care about the Barnes tradition. They just want to have more cha-ching in their pockets.
Yeah, it's all about, those suites and how much they're going to get for those
things. It truly
is.
Luxury suites, AstroTurf domes. They've ruined sports. Well, my take's similar.
Okay.
We'll just go down I-35 a few hundred miles to Kansas City, where I think they have the greatest sports complex in the nation. Arrowhead and the K. Well, the Royals are extorting the fan base to pass a tax so they can move downtown out of a perfectly functional ballpark. Well, now the Chiefs are getting in on the act.
Oh, boy.
This Jackson County, Missouri vote comes up April 2nd. The Chiefs want $800 million to renovate Arrowhead, which I think is a spectacular venue. They get $77K in there for every home game. It's a sea of red. The tailgate scene is unbelievable. You can't top what they have in Kansas City. Not to mention they win, Wally. 3 Super Bowl titles since 2020 and another appearance. But that's not good enough for Clark Hunt and the Chiefs. They've got their hands out with a tin cup. Hey, put some money in for us taxpayers. Or if you don't, they actually brought up the R word. Now, relocation could mean Kansas, just, cross state lines, or it could mean going, to Portland, Oregon. Who knows? But my point is, that's offensive to me. And get off your high horse. You don't need anything new. Arrowhead's fine. So, Chiefs, wake up.
Boy, I'll say.
What a joke.
You're going to move the Kansas City Chiefs.
No way.
They just won the Super Bowl.
Come on. All right, well, let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to David Weld, Paul Langfellow, Rocky, Richard Coffey. For Wally, I'm Eric. Saying so long, this is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.